In France, current President Emmanuel Macron obtained the re-election with 58.5% of the votes. The Red Cross International Committee said it was ready to facilitate the humanitarian evacuations of the Ukrainian city of Mariupol. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro announced that the government of Colombia is advancing plans to generate violence in the country. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the Telesur Studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In France, current President Emmanuel Macron obtained the re-election. According to the Ministry of Interior, Emmanuel Macron won the elections with 58.5% of the votes, while his opponent Marine Le Pen obtained 41.5%. Far-right candidate Le Pen admits her defeat. Despite his victory, Macron must wait for the legislative elections, which will be crucial to implement his government's policies. He will face major challenges such as the economic and social situation within the country and his position regarding the conflict in Ukraine. Also, the sanctions imposed by the United States and its European allies on Russia. Macron is the fourth French president to win re-election after Charles de Gaulle, François Mitterrand, and Jacques Chirac. The turnout in the second round was just under 72% according to the Interior Ministry, slightly higher than that at the same time for the first round 2 weeks ago. However, the abstention rate in the French presidential elections was 28%, the highest in the last 20 years. The International Committee of the Red Cross expressed its readiness to facilitate the humanitarian evacuation of the Ukrainian city of Mariupol. The organization stressed the need to ensure the voluntary and safe departure of thousands of civilians and hundreds of wounded from the city, including the territory of Azovstal plant. In this regard, they reiterate their readiness to assist the parties to the conflict to agree on practical and feasible arrangements for the evacuation of those in need. Likewise, they informed that the Red Cross teams are ready to facilitate operations once such agreement is reached and security guarantees are established. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov announced that the air defense forces managed to shoot down a Ukrainian Su-25 aircraft over the Kharkov region. The spokesman added that Russian missiles struck a number of areas containing weapons and ammunition depots and targeted 33 Ukrainian army commands and communication centers. Since the beginning of the special military operation, he said 141 aircraft, 110 helicopters, 541 drones, 264 anti-aircraft missiles platforms, 2,479 tanks and combat vehicles, 278 rocket launchers, 181 artillery, and 2,321 special military vehicles have been destroyed. The Russian ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, announced on Sunday that the U.S. authorities blocked the work of the Russian diplomatic mission in Washington. The Russian ambassador to the United States, Anatoly Antonov, informed on Sunday that the work of the Russian diplomatic mission in the United States is blocked. Anatoly Antonov also stated that the accounts of the Russian generals' consulates in Houston and New York were closed by the Bank of America. The ambassador also declared that the Russian diplomatic mission received threats both by telephone and in writing, and pointed out that even for a period of time, he was prevented from leaving the embassy due to the fear of the Russian phobia by the citizens of the North American country. The National Health Commission of China announced the death of 31 people from COVID in the metropolis of Shanghai, bringing the total number of deaths since the beginning of the epidemic in China to 4,725. The city has a total of 87 deaths since the confinement began more than a month ago due to an abrupt increase in the number of cases. Meanwhile, the Commission reported on Sunday 1,500 80 new positive cases of the coronavirus detected the day before, 1,566 of them due to local transmission, and the rest imported. The localities with the highest number of cases of community transmission were Shanghai with 1,401 cases, Jilin with 60, and Heilongjiang with 26, while Beijing reported 22 cases. The disease started spreading in the capital a week ago and involving schools, tourist groups, and families. In Ecuador, a boat carrying 2,000 gallons of diesel sank this Saturday in the Galapagos Island, and a contingency plan was activated in case of a possible environmental emergency. The privately owned diving boat Albatross was wrecked near Santa Cruz Island, Puerto Ayora. The Ecuadorian Ministry of the Environment said there is a superficial fuel leak in several points of the bay. It also indicated that immediate actions were taken to reduce the impact of the incident on the marine ecosystems near the Galapagos Islands, declared a natural heritage of humanity. We are taking a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro announced that the government of Colombia is advancing plans to generate violence in the country. In his speech at the second plenary session at the 5th Congress of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela on Saturday, President Nicolás Maduro said that the National Intelligence Services are gathering information and investigating the destabilizing plans organized against the nation from Bogotá. Among the plans announced by the President highlighted the attack against the national electric system, the fresh water service, and the selective assassination of members of state security forces. He also warned that groups of the extreme right are trying to stop the process of recovery and economic growth of the country.
Ivan Duque has activated plans with criminals and gangs of criminals by states, and is infiltrating groups of mafia criminals through the borders who come to attack, first of all, the police and the militaries, and to attack the public force. And so I denounce it. We are following those plans with the strategic and police intelligence, and popular intelligence as well. Their objective is to attack and kill policemen, as Pablo Escobar Gaviria and the mafia did. First, kill policemen so that the police lose their morale and their effectiveness, and then attack police headquarters, military barracks. Watch out, governors. I'm not talking for the sake of talking. It is a plan of the narco-trafficking mafia that rules Colombia. So I hope that the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, our governors, city mayors, security ministers, step it up to neutralize this plan of violence that comes from the narco government of Colombia. Understood? I'm denouncing publicly these plans.
Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit arrived in Cuba on Sunday for an official visit that will last until April 27th. Cuba's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said on its website that during his stay, Mr. Skerrit, who is also Minister of Finance, Resilience, Economic Affairs, Investment Planning, Sustainable Development, Telecommunications, and Broadcasting of that country, will hold talks with Cuban authorities and carry out other activities. Cuba and Dominica will celebrate next May 18th 26 years of uninterrupted official relations. However, relations existed since 1979, when a free scholarship program was instituted, thanks to which more than 400 young people graduated in university and middle-level careers in different fields.
So whenever I come to Cuba, I feel a sense of pride in the struggles of the Cuban people. The fact that the Cuban people, notwithstanding their challenges, have not compromised their principles. And Fidel always told us we could negotiate words but not our principles. And every time I come to Cuba, it reinforces my commitment to the Cuban people and the Cuban Revolution. And for us to continue the advocacy and the activism and the fight to get this embargo off the backs of the Cuban people.
In Panama, power generation from renewable sources is growing. According to a statement from the National Energy Department, renewable energy generation during the first quarter of the year was at 553.89 megawatts per hour, which represents an increase of 51% over the same period of 2019, whose maximum was 282.75. Likewise, the introduction of renewable energies in the country's electricity system increased by 69% between 2019 and 2021. Also, the Spanish Energy Agency recorded a double in photovoltaic parks from about 200 megawatts to about 400 megawatts over the past year alone. Panama's goal is to reduce carbon emissions by 11.5% by 2030 and at least 24% by 2050. And last Saturday night, Nayib Bukele, president of El Salvador, announced his plans to ask Parliament to extend the state of emergency for another 30 days, which he has used to combat criminal gangs operating in the country. According to the president, over 15,000 terrorists were captured in just 27 days of application of the emergency regime as part of the operation known as the War on Gangs. In addition, the National Civil Police of El Salvador stated this Saturday that since the activation of the emergency regime up to Friday, April 22nd, no homicide has been registered, and on the same day they captured 408 terrorists for a total of 15,463. Bukele confirmed that 91% of Salvadorians support his government's work against gangs, according to a survey conducted by the interdisciplinary development consulting firm. With different activities, the Uruguayan Communist Party commemorated the anniversary of the massacre of Section 20. The main figures of Frente Amplio and other social organizations of the country participated in the act. On April 17, 1972, repressive forces of the Uruguayan state assassinated 8 communist workers who were in Section 20 of that political grouping. In that operation, the police agents started a shooting against establishments, and later the order was given to those inside to leave. When they went out to the streets with their hands up, Jose Abreu, Hector Fernandez, Raúl Gancio, Ricardo González, Rubén López, Luis Mendiola, and Justo Sena were murdered. Although the state never recognized the massacre, different investigations confirmed that it was an official operation that sought to assassinate the workers. And thousands of demonstrators, mainly rural workers, marched and drove tractors down the streets of Buenos Aires, protesting against the fiscal pressure on the agricultural sector as the country witnesses a sharp rise in fuel and fertilizer prices. The demonstrations drove in cars and vans joined by dozens of tractors along Avenida del Libertador to the Casa Rosada, the Argentine government house, where they read a proclamation. According to a study by FADA, a foundation of the sector itself, 64.9% of the income of agricultural producers goes to taxes, most of it from export revenues. The demonstrators also showed their fear of the recent plan announced by the Minister of Economy, Martin Guzman, who opened the door to a tax on those companies that have a profit of more than around $8.5 million US dollars.
Everything is very difficult. It is very difficult to maintain the fields. Over a few months, they increased the price of fuel. The spare parts cannot be maintained. Working in the field is quite difficult.
We have more news coming up after this final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Democratic Republic of the Congo declared outbreak of Ebola virus after another confirmed case was reported in Bandaka, a city in northwestern Ecuador province. The patient, a 31-year-old man, began indicating symptoms on April 5th. 2 weeks later, the patient was admitted to an Ebola treatment center for intensive care, but he died later that day. Investigations to determine the source of the outbreak are ongoing. This is the 6th outbreak since 2018. Previous outbreaks in Ecuador province were in 2020 and 2018 with 130 and 54 recorded cases, respectively. The Lebanese military recovered the bodies of 5 migrants whose boat carrying nearly 60 people capsized the night before in the Mediterranean, raising the death toll to 6, state media reported. The national news agency said that 5 bodies were found near a small island off the coast of the northern city of Tripoli. Several survivors told local TV stations that the Lebanese Navy is to blame for the incidents. They said a military ship rammed the migrant boat twice, damaging it, in an effort to force it to return to the coast. Meanwhile, the commander of the Lebanese Navy said the migrant boat was old and only capable of carrying 6 people. He added that no precautionary measures were taken on the boat and no one was wearing life vests. Search operations are still ongoing for the missing.
The captain of the boat decided to make maneuvers to escape from the Coast Guard and the other boats in a way that led to a collision between the large boat of the Coast Guard and the small boat. The victims were those who survived were 45, and yesterday there was one body of a child. And today we have 5 confirmed bodies until now. God willing, there will not be more victims. There might be some missing. We are looking for them. Hopefully someone will tell us who they are.
Israel has closed the area's crossing for Palestinian workers at the border with the Gaza Strip following the reports by the Israeli Defense Force about 3 rockets fired from Gaza. Israel's decision has been denounced as collective punishment of the impoverished territory's 2 million residents who have lived under an Israeli-Egyptian blockade for nearly 15 years. The move, announced on Saturday, comes after the Israeli army accused Hamas, the armed group that rules the Gaza Strip, of firing 3 rockets into Israel late on Friday, as tensions continue to mount during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The head of the Gaza Workers' Union says Palestinians and their economy will be greatly affected.
We appeal to mediators, all decision makers, and the United Nations to pressure the occupation to open the crossing before Eid al-Fitr because the workers do not live in a state of luxury and have been besieged for 16 years. Therefore, closing the crossing at this time will put pressure and negatively affect these families and workers.
And scientists began a 5-month mission on Saturday to study how plastic pollution in Africa's main rivers and climate change stresses are impacting microorganisms in the Atlantic Ocean. Their survey is being staged from the 33-year-old Taro research schooner, which arrived in South Africa's Cape Town on Friday ahead of the expedition up to the West African coast. The researchers will analyze how nutrients and pollution in major African rivers, the Congo, Orange, Gambia, and Senegal, are affecting the Atlantic. They will trace the sources of plastic pollution at river mouth to understand their distribution and the types of material involved.
So our research is to understand what microbes are there and what they are actually doing in the environment and how they change over time. And on top of that, overlay that with how they might respond to climatic ecosystem changes.
Very important role to play in terms of sharing, education. Yeah, for us, when we swim in the ocean, there is nothing, just water. But in fact, there is billions and billions of organisms in every liter of water.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. For more, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.